Okay, welcome to the deep dive. We're jumping right into the material you've sent over, focusing on something, well, maybe a bit unexpected at first, B2B influencer marketing.
Right.
And specifically looking at Oman and, the broader GCC region.
Yeah, it's funny, isn't it? You hear influencer and you immediately think like consumer brands, lifestyle stuff.
Exactly. Lipstick, travel.
Yeah, not complex B2B services. But the sources you've gathered here, they really argue it's a different ballgame now.
They really do. So that's our mission today. Unpack all this information and figure out why B2B influencer marketing is actually becoming a thing, a significant thing in Oman.
And crucially, how businesses can actually do it effectively there, based on what these sources say.
Right. What's the playbook? Let's dig in.
Okay, so where the material starts is really setting the context for Oman and the GCC. It paints this picture of a really highly engaged digital ecosystem. Professionals, they are online. They're active. And that's like the foundation for all of this. It's a digital-first environment. People connect, they get information digitally.
That makes sense generally.
Yeah.
But if I'm, say, a B2B company selling, I don't know, enterprise software, something quite technical,
Yeah.
why influencers? Still feels a bit counterintuitive, maybe.
That's exactly what the material tackles head on. And it lays out some key reasons why it's actually quite effective, especially in the market like Oman. First one, enhanced credibility.
Credibility. Okay, how does that work in B2B with an influencer?
Well, see, it's not like B2C, where it might be about aspiration or popularity.
Mm-hmm.
In B2B, according to these sources, it's all about tapping into genuine expertise.
Oh, okay.
You're not looking for a celebrity. You're looking for like an industry expert, a thought leader, people within that industry already respect and trust.
Right.
So when that person talks about your solution or your company, well, that carries a certain weight, a level of trust that, standard corporate marketing just struggles to achieve.
Yeah, B2B decisions are often about trust, aren't they? Who do you believe?
Exactly. And getting that nod from a respected expert, it just cuts through the noise.
Got it. So it's like a trusted colleague's recommendation, but scaled up digitally? That makes a lot more sense. And I guess that links directly to the next point you mentioned was important, targeted reach.
Absolutely. Super crucial for B2B, especially in the GCC context the sources describe. Think about it. Traditional ads, often a bit of a scattergun approach.
Mm-hmm. Hit everyone, hope for the best.
Right. But these B2B influencers, they've usually built very specific, often quite niche audiences.
Okay.
The material really highlights this. It lets you put your message right in front of the exact people you need to reach. Decision makers, technical specialists, potential partners, the actual professionals you want to talk to.
Without wasting budget on irrelevant audiences.
Precisely. You're reaching the people who are already tuned in and listening to that particular expert's voice.
So you're speaking directly to the right crowd. But what about the complexity issue? B2B stuff can be, let's face it, pretty dense, hard to make it exciting sometimes.
Yeah, and that's where the material brings in this idea of authentic storytelling.
Okay.
B2B products, services, they can be abstract, technical, maybe a little dry, but a good influencer, they're often skilled communicators. They can take that complexity and sort of translate it
How so?
into relatable stories, maybe showcase a real-world use case from their experience, explain a tricky concept in simpler terms. It feels more genuine, more human than, reading a brochure or a spec sheet.
They can make the complex understandable, maybe even relatable. Interesting. What else did the sources point to as a key benefit?
Something maybe less obvious, market insight.
Oh, tell me more.
Yeah, the sources suggest that working with these local B2B influencers, it's not just a one-way street of you pushing your message out.
Right.
These people are often really embedded in their specific industry within Oman or the GCC. They have their finger on the pulse, local trends, what people are talking about, the specific challenges businesses are facing there.
So partnering with them gives you intel.
Exactly. It can be a valuable source of kind of on-the-ground intelligence about what's actually happening and what resonates in that specific business environment.
That's clever. They're not just a broadcast channel, they're also a listening post. And the last point was about opportunity.
Yes. The material makes a point that, while B2C influencer marketing is huge everywhere, the B2B side, particularly in Oman, is still, less crowded.
So there's room to make an impact.
Definitely. It suggests there's a real opportunity for businesses that get in early to establish themselves, build those key relationships, and gain that thought leadership edge before it becomes saturated. You can stand out more easily right now.
Okay, let me try and summarize the why then, based on this. If you're doing business in Oman or the GCC, you should consider this. because you can gain credibility via trusted experts, reach exactly the right professionals, make complex ideas clearer through storytelling, get valuable market insights, and potentially do it while the field is less crowded.
That's a great summary. It's essentially about building trust and communicating value digitally, but in a way that aligns with how professionals in that specific region are already operating online.
Got it. Okay, that makes the why pretty compelling. So inevitably, the next question is how?
Hmm.
How do you actually do B2B influencer marketing effectively in Oman, according to these sources? What are the steps?
Right, the how. The material lays out a pretty clear strategic framework.
Mm.
And no surprise, like any good marketing, it starts with defining clear objectives.
Step one, know what you're aiming for.
Exactly. What do you actually want to achieve? Is it just getting your name out there, brand awareness? Or is it more concrete, like generating qualified leads?
Or maybe positioning your company as a thought leader, driving traffic.
Yeah, all of those. You need that specific goal up front because it shapes everything else.
Makes sense. But the sources seem to put a lot of weight on the next step, identifying the right influencers. How's that different in B2B?
Yeah, this is where it really diverges from the typical B2C approach, according to the material. It's absolutely not about just finding someone with a massive follower count.
Okay, so follower count isn't the main metric.
Not at all. The key criteria highlighted are things like, do they have real demonstrable industry expertise? Do they have genuine credibility within their professional community?
Right, peer respect.
Yes. And crucially, is their audience actually made up of the B2B decision makers or professionals you're targeting in Oman or the GCC? It's all about relevance and depth, not just reach.
So a smaller audience of the perfect people is way better than a huge, irrelevant one.
Absolutely. And the material suggests looking closely at engagement rates. The quality of the conversation happening in comments, the shares, the discussions, that often tells you more about real influence than just vanity metrics. It even mentions that micro or nano influencers, people with smaller but super engaged niche audiences, can sometimes be incredibly effective in B2B. They can feel more relatable, more authentic.
Interesting angle. Thinking smaller for bigger impact, potentially.
Hmm.
Where are these folks active? Which platforms matter for B2B in Oman, according to the sources?
Well, the main one mentioned, naturally, is LinkedIn. That's the professional hub.
Sure.
YouTube also comes up, which makes sense for longer form content, demos, webinars. Interestingly, Instagram is mentioned too.
Instagram for B2B.
Yeah, the sources frame it as being useful for perhaps visual insights, maybe behind the scenes glimpses, conference highlights, that sort of thing. And also X, formerly Twitter, for real-time chat and industry news.
Okay, so multiple platforms depending on the goal. Now, say you found some potential partners who tick the boxes for expertise and audience. How do you actually approach them? Surely it's not just a cold pitch.
Definitely not. The material really stresses building authentic relationships. Treat them like partners, not just advertising channels. That means, ideally, engaging with their stuff first. Show you actually follow them, you respect their work, you understand their perspective before you reach out with an idea.
Build some rapport before the ask.
Exactly. And when you do make the approach, the focus needs to be on the value proposition for them and for their audience.
What's in it for the influencer?
Yeah. How does collaborating with you benefit them? Does it give them unique access, exclusive content, a chance to co-create something valuable that boosts their standing or helps their community? It has to be mutual.
Makes sense. A partnership, not a transaction.
And the material also pushes for long-term relationships over just one-off campaigns. Consistency builds that deeper trust, which, as we said, is so vital in B2B.
Right. Trust takes time.
Right.
Okay, so you've built the relationship, formed a partnership. What kind of content should you actually create together? What does the material suggest?
It really emphasizes co-creating compelling content. It's not just about the influencer reposting your stuff.
Okay, so what forms could that take?
Several ideas come up. Thought leadership is a big one. Maybe joint interviews, contributing to a white paper together, hosting a webinar, collaborating on an industry report, really leaning into their expertise.
Leveraging their authority.
Yes. Also, educational content, things like tutorials, explainer videos, maybe even case studies where the influencer walks through how a solution addressed a real problem.
Practical value.
Definitely. And also, maybe more humanizing content behind-the-scenes stuff, event coverage from their perspective. But, and this is a huge point, the material hammers home for Oman and the GCC. Local relevance is absolutely key.
Non-negotiable, you said. What does that mean practically for the content itself?
It means it has to reflect the Omani or wider GCC context. It needs to understand the cultural nuances, speak to the specific business challenges or opportunities people are facing there. Generic, global content likely won't cut it.
It needs to feel authentic to that market.
Exactly. It needs to resonate with the lived experience of professionals in that region.
Okay, makes sense. Build relationships, create relevant, co-created content. Then the crucial part, how do you know if any of this is actually working? Measurement.
The final piece of the puzzle, measure and optimize. You've got to track performance against those initial objectives using the right KPIs.
And what KPIs does the material suggest are important for B2B influencer marketing?
Well, some standard ones like reach and impressions for awareness, but crucially, engagement rate, not just likes, but actual comments, shares, meaningful interaction.
Quality over quantity again.
Yes. Then website traffic, specifically looking at referral traffic coming from the influencer's activity.
Yeah.
And then the big one for B2B, lead generation.
Ah, the bottom line.
Right. Did people download that asset, sign up for the webinar, request a demo because the influencer promoted it? That's often where the real ROI shows up.
Tracking actual business impact.
Exactly. And finally, keeping an eye on things like brand sentiment and mentions. What's the conversation around your brand like in relation to this partnership? Is it positive? Relevant?
Okay, so the whole strategy laid out in the material seems to be set clear goals, find the right experts based on credibility and audience match in the region, not just numbers, build real long-term partnerships, co-create valuable content that's deeply relevant locally, and then track the specific B2B outcomes.
That's the framework it presents. A way to move beyond just general digital noise and actually leverage trusted voices for targeted impact in a market that clearly values relationships and local understanding.
Right. Okay, so let's zoom out for a final thought. Based on everything we've covered from this material, especially that strong emphasis on trust, on deep expertise, and the absolute need for local context in Oman and the GCC. It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Given how critical these elements seem to be for successful B2B influencer marketing in a specific market like Oman,
Yeah.
what does that tell us about the future of building digital business relationships? Not just there, but maybe in any niche market or any market with distinct cultural or business norms.
That's a really interesting question. Is this Omani example actually a pointer towards a broader shift?
Right. Could be. Maybe it signals that for specialized B2B audiences everywhere, the future isn't about mass reach online, but about fostering these deeper, credible, context-aware connections. Is that the blueprint that travels?
Food for thought, definitely.
Indeed. Well, that was a fascinating deep dive. Thanks for bringing all this material on B2B influencer marketing in Oman and the GCC to the table. It really paints a detailed picture.
Yeah, it was good to unpack it. The strategy outlined in those sources is pretty compelling when you break it down.
It really is. So for you listening, hopefully you now have a much clearer view of why this is relevant in that region and, importantly, a strategic map for how to approach it, drawn directly from the sources we discussed.
It's worth thinking about how those core ideas, trust, expertise, local relevance might apply elsewhere too.
Absolutely. Definitely gives you a different lens on digital connection in the B2B space. Thanks again for joining us for this deep dive.
My pleasure.
We'll catch you on the next one.